The question is that the motion be agreed to. The Honourable Annette King.
Mr Speaker, can I begin by congratulating the member who has promoted this bill, the third promoter of this bill, because it is not often that a member gets to have a bill supported by all members in the House and for it to go through all stages and to become the law of the land. It is such a shame that we don't have more of this sort of approach. So often there are very good members' bills on the opposition side of the House, but we struggle to get the same sort of cooperation because politics come in the way. But in the case of the live organ donors bill, that was taken over from Camcorder, and before that Michael Woodhouse, by Chris Bishop, is having its third reading today. And I noted that the member was very lavish in his praise on his parliamentary colleagues. But can I say to him, this bill would not have been improved if it hadn't been for the entire Health Select Committee. Unfortunately, it wasn't just Mr Simpson and others that improved it. In fact, it was improved by National Labour and Greens, because in its original version, it wasn't a very good bill, and I'm sorry to say that, but that is the case. No, I'm not churlish, it's the truth. And I sat on the committee, I heard the evidence, and the bill was not in a very good space, and I think the member would have to admit that, because what did the Select Committee do, under the very good chairmanship of Simon O'Connor, was to improve this bill and make this bill work for New Zealanders. And I now believe that we do have a bill that is fit for purpose. It is a bill for live organ donors, and I agree with Mr Bishop that those who donate live organs, those who are living human beings, who give up part of their body to help another person, are heroes. They are selfless. They are there to give help to somebody, often people that are near and dear to them. And you cannot be more selfless than that, Mr Speaker. Unless, of course, but also, not unless, also, you can be selfless in death, when organs that are available on death can also be used. This bill deals with those who are living, and what it has done is enabled people to be able to give an organ, to still have income assistance while they are recuperating and recovering from that surgery. That didn't exist for them. And so for many people, it was a financial burden to give up work, to give up income, to provide an organ to a loved one. They were going to be penalised financially. And so we now enable them. We recommended the changes to provide for the cost neutrality to donors instead of 80% of lost earnings based on ACC compensation model. We have enabled them to be able to get 80% of their earnings. And this, I think, is a good move. It also moves it away from people having to go and beg to MSD to moving it to the Ministry of Health to ensure that there is no obstacle to them getting that financial assistance. And so we've ended up, I think, and landed in a very good spot. There is one part of organ donation that still does need to be addressed, and I hope that it will be addressed in the near future. And that's the issue of organ donation from people who have passed on. And I want to acknowledge today the work that has been done for many, many years by Andy Tuki from Christchurch. And as a Minister of Health, I dealt with Andy. He was relentless at raising this issue. And I think that we haven't finished this process until we address the issue of organs from people who have deceased. There are a huge number of organs available, but very few New Zealanders who are prepared to donate, and for a number of reasons. You may find that the person themselves has said they would like to donate on death. They are willing and able to donate. They say, please use my organs for the good of someone else. But at the time of death, that person is no longer considered a person. They are now the property of their family. And so often it is the family members who decide that they don't wish the organs of their loved one to be donated. And I can understand that at the time there is a lot of emotion. Your loved one has passed on, and here is somebody saying, and by the way, can we have their organs? I know it's not done like that, but you know what I mean. It is a very emotional time for people. And so we do need to have a better way of going around this. Because if we could also get increased organ donations from deceased people, we could considerably increase our organ donation in New Zealand. And so one of the issues that has been raised as helping this would be an organ donation register, and to have a register of those who are prepared to donate, and to have, I believe we would probably need to change the law to ensure that the person's wishes are, like a will, are carried out after their death and cannot be overridden by a family. And so it's interesting that Mr. Bishop said that this, for him, came about when he was out with the Minister of Health at a meeting in the Hutt Valley. And I have to say to Mr. Bishop, this really should have been a government bill. This is a bill that is about health issues. It hasn't become one. The member has picked it up, got it where it is, good on him. But the next part of it does require government intervention, and that is donation from deceased people. And that does require a government measure, because I believe it does require a register. And I noticed when the Minister put out an announcement about this bill, he said he did not support a register. In fact, he said it before we even heard the submissions. He did not support a register. But unfortunately, that was a change from his position that he held when he was in opposition. Because in opposition, he said, the Ministry of Health has said there's no evidence of a register improving donor rates. Well, we've heard that from several jurisdictions around the world that are already instituting this type of donor register. If it's good enough for the Canadians, for places in America, for the states in Australia, then one would wonder why we are not doing this in New Zealand. This was the Minister of Health in opposition. He was in favour of it then. He said, and I agree with him on all this, Mr. Speaker, he said the problem we have at the moment is that if we register on our driver's licence as an organ donor, there is no absolute guarantee that someone won't overrule that wish when we pass on. He said this, the National Party position is that if one makes a decision about what happens to one's body after one dies, then that should be absolutely binding and no one else should be able to overrule that decision. Two issues, the issue of a person when they die and no one overruling it, and two, the register. So I say to the government, congratulations to Chris Bishop for getting live organ donation through, and I hope we see a big increase in organ donation, because we do feature pretty low down in the world. But I would like us, as a parliament, led by a government, to put in place measures to increase organ donation for those organs from deceased people. That would finish the work that needs to be done in this area. And there is huge saving for New Zealanders, for taxpayer and for people, if they can access organs to enable them to live fuller lives and healthier lives. So, Mr. Speaker, we support this bill. It has ended up being a positive measure. It's a measure that I think the whole House supports because it is sensible, it needs to happen, and we also commend the bill to the House.